Hi, I'm Madeleine. I'm Big Brother Watch's Legal and Policy Officer, and I specialise in the human rights and civil liberties implication of the UK government's response to coronavirus. The past few months in the UK have been full of contradictions. On the one hand, there is growing optimism as deaths and hospitalisations related to coronavirus plummet and the vaccine rollout continues successfully. But on the other hand, there are signs that our rights and freedoms won't be given back so quickly, with emergency laws extended for another 6 months and vaccine passports on the horizon. Here are the 5 things you need to know about the UK's response to coronavirus. Number 1, COVID passes.
Well, let's return to the news that the government could soon trial vaccine passports at some pilot events.
After a year of authoritarian measures, unlawful prosecutions and jackbooted policing, it seems like the worst may be yet to come. COVID status certificates, or COVID passes, would fundamentally reshape British society and change our relationship with the state.
To try to implement a segregation policy, I mean, we haven't seen anything like this in Britain for decades, is very, very troubling. This should be a moment for optimism, and instead, I think we find ourselves on the precipice of a serious civil liberties war.
It's not just civil liberties campaigners who are concerned. Over 70 MPs have backed our pledge to oppose divisive and discriminatory COVID passes, and the Equality and Human Rights Commission have warned that these plans could create a two-tier society. The hospitality sector said they have very significant concerns. The Nighttime Industry Association's CEO said the plans are unworkable and would cause further anxiety for operators and potential conflict between staff and customers, as well as being discriminatory. The Cinema Association has said it does not believe that it is appropriate to ask someone to prove they've undertaken a medical procedure or to undergo a medical test to access what is supposed to be a place of entertainment and enjoyment. The World Health Organization has advised against the use of vaccine passports, even for travel. We won't accept a new era of segregation or a checkpoint society. We're building the biggest fight possible against COVID passes. Over 2,600 people have joined the challenge so far. You can join the fight back by clicking here. Number 2, Coronavirus Act renewal. Just over a year ago, the government passed the Coronavirus Act, the piece of legislation which gives ministers unparalleled powers over most areas of public life. When it was passed, MPs from all parties vowed to scrap it as soon as they could, and we successfully campaigned for a vote in Parliament every 6 months so they could do just that. But it becomes all too easy for governments to get used to sweeping powers, and as has happened throughout history, they've been unwilling to give them back. Despite new promises that restrictions would be over in June this year, at the 6-month vote in March, the government extended the Coronavirus Act until October, with MPs backing them. However, the rebellion is growing. At the 6-month vote in September, 24 MPs voted against extending the Act. In the vote in March, 76 MPs voted against extending the Act.
The ayes to the right, 484, the noes to the left, 76. So the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Unlock.
We will keep campaigning until the Coronavirus Act is scrapped. This is a law that has been responsible for over 250 unlawful prosecutions. That's 100% of prosecutions and charges under the Act. Schedules 21 and 22, which contain powers to detain citizens and ban protests, have only ever been used for unlawful prosecutions. Number 3, excessive policing. Over the past year, the UK has seen 854 new pieces of legislation related to coronavirus. In England alone, there have been 3 lockdowns, 2 different tier systems, a myriad of local restrictions, and now a new roadmap. The rules are not and have never been clear, least of all it appears to the officers who are enforcing them. In the last 8 weeks alone, a woman was arrested for going out for a coffee, and a care worker was fined for eating her lunch in her car alone. A busker in York was arrested for playing the piano, and a man who had recently lost a family member was handcuffed and taken to a police station for going for a walk on the beach. These incidents are just a snapshot of a year where policing has become increasingly untethered to the law. Parliament's Human Rights Committee is so concerned about unlawful policing, they've backed our call for police to review every single lockdown fine. Our analysis indicates that around 20,000 lockdown fines could have been issued unlawfully. This kind of policing has no place in a democracy. It's time for these police powers to be stripped back and every single fine to be reviewed. Number 4, attack on protest rights. The tragic death of Sarah Everard sparked a national conversation about women's safety on the streets, harassment and misogyny. It was a moment of public grief and anger. Yet when a group of women tried to organise a safe, socially distanced vigil for Sarah and other victims of violence, the Met Police threatened huge fines and criminal charges if they went ahead with it. Hundreds of women gathered anyway. What happened next appalled the nation. Police officers used violence and aggression to fine and arrest women who had gathered peacefully to mourn and reclaim the night. It didn't have to end like that. The High Court has ruled that a blanket ban on protests is not lawful, but that hasn't stopped police forces around the country arresting protesters and even legal observers at Kill the Bill protests. Number 5. Operation Moonshot. In April, the government launched Operation Moonshot. It's planned to test all adults twice a week for coronavirus, regardless of whether they have symptoms or whether they've come into contact with anyone who may be infectious. There have also been suggestions that test results might be needed for COVID passes or to enter large events. However, there are serious concerns about the accuracy of these tests. Some studies have suggested that they might miss up to 60% of asymptomatic cases, as well as returning false positives. And yet, the government has already spent over £3 billion of public money on them. The Royal Statistical Society has urgently called for more evidence on their suitability for mass testing, and warned that current evidence suggests that tests are not accurate enough to form the basis of a mass testing regime. SAGE and the UK's healthcare regulator have also raised concerns about inaccurate results when testing at scale. These test results can legally compel someone to self-isolate or face criminal sanctions, and could control our ability to access work, school and events. We sent a briefing to every parliamentarian explaining why rapid tests for test certificates are dangerous for public health, equality and privacy and must be rejected. If you want to read more about how the government's response to COVID is impacting our rights and freedoms, we are regularly publishing detailed emergency powers and civil liberties reports. You can find every report, starting from the beginning of lockdown, on our website. Big Brother Watch won't stop until all of these draconian laws and restrictions are rolled back. Fight back. Join us.